You're not doing what we call storytelling again. You're doing what we call story making, where you now begin to integrate your consumer into
the brand story.
Your brand story. You can't make any groundbreaking without connecting with consumer. And the starting point of that is data gathering. What you do is a function of where consumers are. It's not about I go shoot an ad. What is the content of that ad? That ad encapsulates the real life of what is happening with people. What has changed is the mode and the platform. In those days, you have TVC, short 60-second TVC, and be looking for a TV station to put it. The content hasn't really changed in terms of format. It's a video, but where do you put it now? You put it on Instagram. You put it on YouTube. You put it on other platforms, Facebook and the rest. And so the question then becomes, how do you become sensitive to the changes in the dynamics of consumer trend?
Today, I have with me someone I have great respect for. He is a veteran in Nigerian and I must say African marketing space. Today with me on Chat with Executive, I have Mr. Ajiborode Abiodun. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much to both and the team.
I've actually really been looking forward to this opportunity. In 2018, when I met you, you took a class in strategic marketing for the CIM UK certification. And I must say that I don't think I've ever told you this. Seed was just getting started then. And I just felt like, I've always been interested in this thing. I've done some courses, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. And the gap was I was just really looking for Nigerian case studies. And I think that was one of the courses. In all fairness, your class was the only class that, really, really exposed me to case studies in Nigeria, what worked, what didn't work, and what could have been better. And that has really, really impacted, because up until that time, a significant part of my practical experience, because I've tried to read a lot, was PR. And that gave real background to my marketing endeavor when we started Seed. And today, we say that Seed is a reputation management company, but we're also a digital marketing company. And our digital marketing is not just, on the basis of we know how to post on social media. It's backed, by the principles of social media. But my first question to you is, what ignited your interest in marketing? And I know the background, but I think I'm going to let you just talk about how, you went ground up to going to the best school in marketing, which is Kellogg's University. So,
okay, good. Thanks to Boston for the opportunity. I think, let me say I'm a bit fortunate in the sense that from the very start, I had clarity on what I wanted to do. Not quite many people do have that kind of opportunity or clarity. So when I was doing my national youth service at JOS, I served with JOS International Bureaus, and during that period, I took a course in the former Chartered Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, that is CIM. So there was a course called Accelerated. They had an accelerated program. They call it, I can't remember the name now, but it was an accelerated such that you can write all the 14 modules in 1 week or thereabout. Now, the reason why I pitched for marketing then was when I left NYSC camp and we were looking for placement. So the first place I went to was just International Bureaus, and they subjected about 15 of us to interviews. And when they subjected us to interviews, apparently after the interviews, we had a sales director there, we had a marketing director at that interview, and we had HR person there. So I did well in my own, little way then. such that the marketing and the sales director was now saying, I want this boy to come to my side. I want this boy to come to my side. And the HR said, okay, let me mediate. So, boy, where do you want to go? So it was like, okay. I just look at the other man. He looks a bit very, jovial and all of that when we were doing the meeting. I said, this man will be a better person to work with. So I just went to marketing.
Interesting.
So I chose to work I went to marketing, and the question now said, okay, do 6 months with marketing and do 6 months with sales. So when I did 6 months with marketing and I understood what marketing was all about, and I did with sales, the interest, naturally, when you work in marketing and you go for events, you dance, you jump up and down, unlike sales that you have to jump on the van, you are carrying bottles, so I literally wanted to do the fun part of the whole thing. So that was the interest. And since then, I never lost that trap to say, I want to build my career in marketing. So I was fortunate with that incident, but more importantly, I started developing my career, my marketing capability even while on service. So that was the foundation, and since then, I've been in marketing.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And what I find very amusing about this part, which I'm hearing for the first time, even though I've known you for like 5 years now, is you have the opportunity from the get-go not to mix sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. Which I still find a lot of people mixing it up today because they're not the same. Why do you think people often mix sales and marketing up?
Okay. So everything boils down to your understanding of the two concepts itself. So, however, depending on the industry in which you start your career, you might probably have a kind of confusion going on. So if you start in the banking industry, in those days they said they are looking for marketing executives. They are not marketers. They are not marketing executives. In fact, they are not salespeople. They are just fund mobilizers. Go to this person, collect fund, and bring to the bank. Because the real job of sales is actually very, very, also very different. They have their dynamic way of operations. But if you grow in FMCG environment, or you grow in a telco environment, you understand very, very, clearly that there is distinction between marketing and sales. The job of marketing is to create demand, and the job of sales is to deliver the demand. So there are two very clear approach to the way they work, both function work. But more importantly, like I used to tell my students at BM, it's say you cannot function effectively if you don't understand both function. And that was why after my experience at SAB Miller, I decided to go to Coca-Cola Learning. And the reason was I wanted to go and learn sales. For you to function effectively as a commercial person, you must understand what happens in sales. You must understand what marketing is. Just, yes, we create demand, but if you don't understand what happens in sales, it becomes very difficult for you to even develop programs and activity that will work in sales. But when you understand how they function and you understand the dynamics of their operation, it will in turn inform the design of your programs and how you engage consumer. Salespeople, half of their brain is volume, so they are not thinking about how your lighting want to look in your advertising or how your merchandising. That's not their job. Their first job is to deliver the volume. Yeah. That is why you need to factor that into when you design your program to ensure that it doesn't impact on the time they needed to go and make their work happen. Mm-hmm. So for the sake of argument, you're having a poster, you want to design a poster that needs a nail, a nail hammer, and for them they don't have that kind of time. Give them a poster that they can peel and then stick and then there they go. So that's a thinking that goes in when you understand the interrelationship between both functions.
I know that at some point we're having a conversation one day and you mentioned the concept of marketing leadership. And, you know, it's something that I've constantly thought of. I mean, in our present world, every smartphone owner is like a publishing house. You know, creating effective demand literally sits in the hands of those. You know, they're a major, significant factor actually. What are the importance for? Why is it very important rather for CEOs to have an in-depth and extensive knowledge and understanding of what you just described in sales and marketing in today's world?
Okay, so the buck stop at the table of the CEO, and most often, when a CEO lack the commercial, acumen, it becomes very difficult for you to see how you plow resources in the direction of commercial. So that's why the fundamental role, when you look at global companies and you see, if you go and do a diagnosis of those companies, you realize that most of their CEO today have either done sales, or they've done marketing, or they've done finance. Most of them. You have pocket of operations that have actually climbed to that, but a lot of time it's about finance, marketing, and sales. And the reason is that these are the three pillars of growth within any organization. Every other function, with all due respect, are supporting functions. So the reason why CEO must understand sales and marketing is that you understand, because sales is a business of today. Marketing is a business of tomorrow. So that's why when we talk about equity, building equity, a lot of business leaders don't understand what we talk about. What is equity? All I want is sales. I just want, let's sell. So that's why you see people doing sales promo, cut price.
Raise to zero.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you do not build enough tenacity in the brand that can help you begin to say, oh, I'm taking off my price a little. And then you will not see that significant effect. The elasticity of demand will be very, very minimal. But when the focus is on the business of today, on sales alone, your mindset will not be on how do we develop pipeline for growth from a marketing point of view. How do we build equity into this brand, now, even if we are not milking it now? How do we build brands that can actually stand the test of time? And those things are the things that marketing does. So when a business leader, a CEO, truly understands this, it then becomes easier for the CEO to support initiatives from both functions. And then you can then say, okay, this is what marketing is doing. However, this is what sales is doing. Where is the meeting point?
I mean, we had a production for a client recently. And let me tell you the most difficult part of that production. We didn't actually want it. I'm going to try and let the cat out of the bag a little bit. What we wanted to do is to use the product in the life of an average, let's say, graduate entry person living in an urban city in Lagos. The most difficult part was that to do it properly from production guys needed to wear an headgear because the POV was his eyes. So the camera needed to be on his head. And that was a very heavy equipment. It was so heavy. So we couldn't do it as much as we wanted to do. We had to find a way around it. But and what inspired that approach is that I'm saying nobody wants to be sold to. Nobody wants to be sold to. Show me how it's working. We were analyzing a report recently about fintech in Nigeria. And one of the things that we noticed was that, like you said, people have become more discerning. And if they can't trust you at a particular time, every other thing you offer them will fall like cards, a pack of cards, like you've just lost them, And there is no amount of marketing that can actually correct that experience. No matter how good your ads is or anything, it can't correct that experience, And it takes me to one of the things that, I said I was really going to ask you today. I mean, you've experienced the time when traditional marketing was the dominant thing. Interestingly, I started my career trying to push digital marketing, and then saw that, okay, we still have to play the traditional, and then, digital has really now become the mainstay. How do you navigate the marketing trend? Because you have done it. You were relevant during traditional, you've also remained relevant now that you're even teaching people. How do you navigate the changing trends? Because now we've kind of gone from, I call it digital ecosystem. You're talking of metaverse. What are the principles, that is very, very much required to be able to navigate marketing trends, especially in a country like Nigeria? And I'm particular about Nigeria also because we are very, very divided. I mean the haves and the haves not. There's a huge gap between the haves and the haves not, and it kind of shapes how they approach a lot of things. But how do you manage that in a country like Nigeria?
Okay, so a simple answer to that question is, who drives the change? It's a consumer.
Consumers, yes.
So the question then becomes, what you do is a function of where consumers are. And without also messing this whole, foundational elements, nothing significantly will change the fundamental principles of marketing, which is a 4Ps. By extension, maybe 7Ps if you talk about service. However, what has changed is the mode and the platform. Today you have TVC. In those days you have TVC, short 30 seconds, 60-second TVC, and be looking for a TV station to put it. What has changed is the platform. The content hasn't really changed in terms of format. It's a video, but where do you put it now? You put it on Instagram. You put it on YouTube. You put it on other platforms, Facebook and the rest. So the question then becomes, how do you become sensitive to the changes in the dynamics of consumer trend? Today, the world has gone beyond brick and mortar if you want to sell. When you begin to understand that your office is just for verification that you are authentic.
2FA.
The real space for selling now has gone into the e-commerce. So when you understand that, product, which is normally you go to offices, you go to store, you go and pick those products, they haven't changed. But the question then becomes, where have you put those products for people to pick? What games are you playing with price? Because not even talking about when that now petrol is out of the roof, dollar is on its way to 1,000 naira, $1,000. The question then becomes, how do you as individual in marketing begin to look at your marketing mix elements to actually, be relevant, still be relevant in that consumer space? So for me, the simple answer is, who are you serving? Your job is to serve the consumer. If the consumer flip to this side, your job is to understand, how do I take my content, my product, how do I take all the elements of my marketing mix, how do I flip it to actually meet the consumer where they are currently? Because I think that's the only thing that changed. Today we still have billboard, but the question then becomes, the billboard has actually migrated. You have a synchronized billboard. Today you print, in those days, bulk of what you print is flex. Today you think about digital billboard where you can actually program. Today you're talking about programmatic buying. So these are the things that have changed. These are the trends that has happened. And it doesn't change the fact that you still have your video content, which is your TVC. But the question is, how are you then placing those things in the lives of changing consumers? And that is the only difference. Nothing else.
Interesting. I mean, like I say, the more things change, the more they actually remain the same. Let's discuss some of the remarkable campaigns in Nigeria and Africa and what make them remarkable. What are some of the campaigns that you've looked at and like, that was a remarkable campaign, and what made them remarkable?
Well, there are couples of them. And in my head now, I will start with, let me start with Peak Milk. And I think more recently, maybe something else is happening in that space. I know we're talking about different locations, how Peak can do more and all of those things. But if you remember in those days when Peak actually was driving the emotional benefit of that brand.
Yes.
And the likes of campaigns like Kanu campaign. There was a line in that place. I know, say one day you go make me proud. So
I can actually remember a Peak song now, from generation to generation.
Exactly.
Peak will always be
exactly.
there.
So those are real campaign that looks at the real, message. How do you cut across that chord? How do you strike that chord of consumer? We've had Udeme, my friend Udeme. These are real campaign that speaks into the fabric of our beings. And a lot. When I was in Cowbell, we ran Cowbell, depending on what you want to do. I remember we wanted to actually drive awareness for Cowbell. We just want to revamp the awareness. And we did, It can be very... Sometimes you need to know who are the TG you're talking to. Maybe you don't need a fancy campaign at this point. Maybe you just need a jingle that actually connects.
Yeah, that catches.
And it got to a point in which you go for wedding ceremony and they are playing and you're wondering that what is happening here. So that is when you realize, you want to talk about Honeywell, Bamba, la. These are they are very subtle, but these are real campaigns. Coca-Cola campaign, that was stunning when you talk about what do you call it?
The one with the name
Share a Coke with Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
that is out of the oak.
Sally, I do not think that I can remember in my life any campaign that drove action like Share Coke. Like, I know people who said in 5 years, in 10 years, they've not drank a bottle of Coke or they've not bought one, who went to stores to look for their name on bottles of Coke.
Exactly.
I think it was an incredible...
It was ingenious.
Yeah, it was very, very ingenious. And when you talked about Peak, and you mentioned the emotional connection, I can totally relate to that, because Peak, at some point, had the feeling people had with iPhone. It was a status thing that you were drinking Peak milk. Yeah. It was a status thing. Yeah. And what I find really interesting when you then talk about Cowbell is that Cowbell didn't think that there was no market for me there. Cowbell went there and said, that's fine. And, did their own campaign, penetrated the market to the point that Peak felt, okay, we have some part of the market, but this guy, they've gone the sachet route, and then Peak did sachet. Yeah, sure. I feel like, from an ecosystem point of view, that is so healthy, because at the end of the day, the consumer is actually the one winning when you look at this state. And these businesses didn't die. I mean, often, people often, sometimes, maybe not often, say that, Peak deciding to go the sachet route is a bit of an indication of a declining economy. But I don't think so. Recently someone said on Twitter that what is also very incredible about Peak is how they decided to take the different segments of the market. The company now, not Peak, to take different segments of the market by releasing different products that fits the different segments of the market from a price point of view. Peak 3 Crown, I think there was a third one, I can't remember now, that the person talked about. Those are fantastic examples, actually.
So to just correct one impression, that if anybody comes to sachets, that's one is a feeling of pressure, or maybe the person has reduced the equity of the brand. I think that is that's a very total, is a wrong assumption. When people don't understand marketing, that is when they talk about.
Is that a perception issue?
No. So I will say the role of small size pack is to drive trial. Regardless of how much I love peak, if peak is in tin and it's 900 CL or ML, I don't know what, 900 grams now.
Actually.
900 grams now, and it's being sold for maybe 4,000 or whatsoever it is. You can't attract anybody. If you do sampling from now till tomorrow, people will take it and they still don't have the economic means of accessing that
4,000 price point.
But when you come to that, that's why they call it stock keeping unit. It's a stock keeping unit. It's understanding what we call the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand that doesn't reduce you. If you go into that space, you realize Peak is still selling maybe 15 naira, 200 naira. The other one is selling 100 naira.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't reduce. But what you've done is that you've lowered down your aspirational ladder so that people at the bottom of the pyramid can access this almighty Peak milk at just 200 naira. And the day I am a mechanic, I repair a Range Rover and one man paid me 100,000, I can then go and buy with my chest full and buy the 4,000 naira one.
Got you. Thank you for that clarification. I mean, I often say that the Nigerian market is a very, very aspirational market. Mm-hmm. And what I find very interesting is how the market is still not a very descending market. An aspirational market that is not very descending is very interesting. Case in point, every property in Lekki is luxury. It beats me. I don't understand. Like, every property is a luxury apartment. I'm like, how did we get here? So the truth is that if you believe the lie that is luxury, I mean, then there's a perception issue, which is why, like you said, sachet is an opportunity for trial. Mm-hmm. That's why some people feel, you're buying sachet, then there's a problem with buying sachet. Because
why you won't blame and why you won't blame every apartment in Lekki being called luxury is that the emblem is not on the house of the building, it's on the locality, it's on the environment.
Another way to look at it, actually.
So, why do you think somebody would leave mainland and decide not to pay 2.5 million naira for a three-bedroom apartment and come to this place to pay 3.5 million naira or 2.5 million naira for
a one bed, a studio apartment,
for a security? Literally, that is the house of a security on the mainland.
You know, again.
But when the person and they ask the person, where do you stay?
I stay in Lekki.
So that takes off the equity, and that's why everything around Lekki is premium apartment.
Like I said, I agree with you. It's a perception issue, which I also strongly, think that if you have a more descending market, somebody's going to tell you that, like, what's going on here? Like, why? I often ask questions like that, like, why? Do you understand? Like the quality of this service, is not in tandem with the price that you're charging. I don't have a problem paying, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to take pride in living on this side of time. No, it doesn't. That's not.
But unfortunately, we still have a problem of demand and supply.
True.
That's the truth. So you can only do that when you have supply.
When I have options.
When you have supply that have actually overweight demand. Let me give you a classic example. Let's look at it this way. If you step down here in front of that place and want to buy water, they can sell that water for you. They say, this water is 500 naira for the sake of argument. Mm-hmm. And maybe that water is being sold for 200 naira. You say, I won't buy it for 500. Because you can actually step to the next store
and buy
and
for 100 or 200 naira. Something.
Let's assume that we are walking on the desert and we have walked for, say, 7 days. We are feeling very thirsty, as in dead thirsty. And that same bottle of water is placed in front of you for 1,000 naira or even 10,000 naira, will you buy?
Of
You
course.
will buy with your own heart, and you will even bless the seller. That is exactly
what is going on here.
Exactly. So that's it. The population of the Lagos is literally more than the available, even
Landmass, yeah.
Not even talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are you saying?
So we don't really have a choice. Okay, let me ask, what does effective demand, now that we're talking of demand and supply, what does effective demand look like in a market like Nigeria? And I mean, recently I've had conversation with the team where we're talking about effective demand. Again, we're looking at a report. We often review a lot of reports on the team. We're looking at a report recently, and we're convinced that the service of a particular client, the effective demand of that particular client is about 1 million in the whole of Nigeria. But let me go back to the question. How do you identify? What does effective demand look like, and what are the tools that you can, use to identify effective demand in a market like Nigeria? Because we're often quick to shout about our 200 million population.
Okay. So when you look at a lot of those things are things that you pick out of your research reports, your market share report. Effective for me is when you begin to strip out those enzymes, so those catalysts that you use to drive or to actually sort of induce demand.
Okay.
So if for instance I say, I decided not to run a promo, I decided not to do a price slash, and I only decide, what I did was to just make my product available, and I do the minimal advertising that I want to do on it. And the question then becomes, what exactly is the demand for my product if I do those basic things? And I think that is where you can actually say, this is your effective demand. This is demand based on the base, the minimum support that you should give. But when you begin to go to your distributors, you're giving them X percentage of discounts, and that discount runs through the back end, and then you see, literally when you go to, distributors or wholesalers or retailer, what we see today is products are being forced into the mouth of consumer. Because you have been forced to buy what you see.
Because there's something in it for the wholesalers, the distributors.
Yes, so the wholesaler can decide to force a product into your mouth. And those are not, in quote, effective, because it's like you're giving them a lollipop. If you pull out that lollipop to say, oh, there's no more discount, there's no more this, then you see the real effective demand of that product. But you know that in business, nothing like that works. You have to continuously induce. You have to induce. And not even when we are in a market in which we can shout here and there. We don't even have the capacity to even supply everything everybody. That's why when you go to December, you see Coca-Cola, Pepsi, La Casera, everybody run out of capacity.
Yeah.
Because that is when Nigerians then have money to buy.
Yeah.
And then you don't even have the capacity to support. Gotcha. And that's exactly what effective will look like. Okay, we don't do anything on this brand, and then
what guarantees a marketing strategy's ability to make a groundbreaking impact within its audience?
We always go back to consumers. You can't make any groundbreaking without connecting with consumer. And the starting point of that is data gathering. You understand data, you interpret that data, and you're able to understand where is a connection point. And when you begin to speak that language of consumer, then things begin to actually strike the chord. And I think that's it for me.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your career so far?
It's a very interesting lesson, and it's a lesson not to think for consumer.
How so?
Okay, interesting. So it's a lesson that I learned when I was in Promasidor, and it's a case study I used to tell people. When I was in Promasidor, we used to have one SKU, one stock keeping unit, 10 grams, and we were selling it for 10 naira then. And FX pressure started coming. So the price of milk jumped up. And there are two ways in which you can drive revenue. It's either you increase price or you reduce the cost. And in this instance, reducing cost means reducing the number of grammage. So we decided to move to 8 grams. But FS pressure would not stop. So we moved to 6 grams. And consumer was still buying it at 10 naira. We maintained the 10 naira. So it got to a point in which I remember my then director came to us to say, hey, this thing is not inside the sachet again. And he was saying, go and make a cup of tea. So we have top tea. So I took top tea, mixed up tea inside 2 cups, said pour that 6 grams. Did he change? To be honest, it didn't change much. And he said, see, this thing is not delivering value for consumer again. So we can't sell this thing. So the next project is for you to develop a packaging for 12 grams that we're going to be selling at 15 naira. Remember, 6 grams plus 6 grams is supposed to be 20 naira.
Yes.
In his mind, is giving more value to consumer at 15 naira to 12 grams, which is believed to be sufficient, enough to actually mix a tea. But unfortunate, we did that project, and that project was a disaster.
They refused to buy it.
A disaster. Because of one thing, we were thinking for consumers. I remember then that we fought it, but again, at that point, I was a brand manager. Who are you? You keep your mouth shut when the boss are talking. But the idea was that the consumer of that 10 grams, they don't drink tea.
So what did they use it for?
That is the SKU that the kids buy. When mothers want to pacify their kid, they give it 10 naira to go and buy. So it is pure dry leak. Those kids buy, they thaw it, they pour it in their mouth, and they're happy. They are going to school, they give you 20 naira to go and buy 2 when you are coming.
Just feel good.
Feel good. Take 1 when you are going, when you are coming, take another 1. Now you took that SKU to 15 naira. So my 20 naira can only buy 1. My 10 naira can't even buy again. And people just move to another brand that offer them that 6 grams at 100. So it's a big lesson not to think for them to actually understand. Today, I remember those days that I said the market effect is going to settle in and things are deliberate. Let the market effect move the price themselves. Today, you can't find sachet milk for maybe 15 naira or thereabout. I don't know. It has happened. So the question is, understand the inside. Why are these people buying this? And who are the people buying
How
this?
do you find out? Because this keeps happening. This is a light bulb moment for me, because one of the very interesting case studies that's come out of Nigeria, I think it was either Panadol or paracetamol. A lot of it was being consumed in the north. And you felt like, oh, maybe it's because of the heat. Oh, maybe it's because of this. Only to find out that they were putting it in the water for the cows and the camels. That's what was driving that volume. So the question here is, how do you find out what the consumer wants genuinely? What could Promasidor have done better in that space?
So a lot of time our research are often focused on consumer, and this is where we don't have a holistic approach to it. When we were doing that research, if we had included the malams who are selling those things, they will tell you who are the people that are buying this SKU. They'll tell you these are buying by students and kids that go to school. Then you understand, okay, if I actually want to ask for that question, you begin to
If you
ask those kids. Or you ask their mother.
Parents.
So, but we assume that the people we're talking to had the white collar people like you and I that are drinking tea and then mixing it, and that was where we missed out.
Sincerely, I mean, this question has come up in conversations with colleagues in the industry, especially for consulting or agencies, where you feel like you guys want to drive numbers. There's no awareness. There's no brand equity. And again, it kind of attests to the fact that there's a knowledge gap. I mean, sometimes the people making the decision to release funds or making decisions of approval do not understand what you said, which is, you've put it very, very succinctly that sales is the business of today and marketing is the business of tomorrow. And I want to talk about BMA very, very quickly now that you've mentioned that. Because I feel like, marketing is very important, right? How are the courses in BMA structured to help bridge this gap?
Okay, so, and thanks for that question. One of the reasons why I stopped lecturing at CIM was because I couldn't, without due respect to the curriculum, doesn't speak to the locality of Nigeria. I can't find that local balance between it. So what I wanted to do is, and is theoretical in nature, and unlike, with like every other program you see all around, a lot of them are just theory. They are not experience based. So what I did with some couple of people, and the first person I went to was Alex Goma. I went to Alex and I told Alex, I said, Alex, one thing we don't have control on is the day we are going to die. And because we don't know that day, and we don't have control over that, it's important that we begin to reproduce ourselves. Reproducing ourselves in the sense that we can't carry this knowledge to the grave, because unfortunately, whether you do autopsy or whatsoever you do, you can't extract somebody's intelligence and then put it from the grave. So I said, how do we bring this knowledge and these experiences into a curriculum that sort of begin to help the next generation of marketeers become a bit more stronger? And I came up with the curriculum, and I have different modules. And those modules we started with, for example, we have different programs. We have the Advanced Brand Management Program, which 2 or 3 of your staff have actually attended. We're starting the Advanced Sales Management Program now, in August. And the reason for that is we've had a lot of salespeople ask us to say, you're doing great for marketing, but we know you also can do for sales. Why are you neglecting us? Then we build a solution for them. Now, if you look at our program, and we have another program which you attended once, strategic leadership and corporate reputation management. Now, the way we've plowed those, and then we have another program called Career Acceleration Program. So Career Acceleration Program speak to you're just graduating, or you spend 1, 2, 3 years and then you need to understand the workability, how a business functions. So it's a kind of a platform to immerse young people into the business world. Then, depending on which aspect you find yourself, whether sales or marketing, you can come and do advanced sales management and brand management. But over that, when you finish that, then you need to now understand the strategy leadership part, and how, at that point, and you realize the course that we did on that is about how do you manage a business from that top level. That's how those programs are built. But more importantly is the modules in the programs. For example, marketing, the advanced brand management program. That program starts with marketing leadership. It's not what is marketing. We started with marketing leadership. And the reason is we wanted our desire is that the participant understand the leadership role of marketing, which is literally to create value for the business and to actually drive profitable growth. So the idea is not about radio, TV. Those are instruments. You need to understand how to think from like a CMO first. When you understand the thinking of the CMO, then even if you're a brand manager, when you're developing your plan, you're developing with the mindset of the CMO.
Fantastic.
So that's how we develop the module. From there, you go to understand the foundation of marketing, which is basically understand how a brand is built from the scratch. Then you go into marketing finance, because a lot of things that we've seen with marketing people is that their creative, side is very, very primed, but they don't understand jack about numbers. How do you take a P&L, a brand P&L? How do you dice a brand P&L? How do you understand the profitability of your brand? How do you even look at a basic financial statement and read that financial statement, interpret it, and see the impact of marketing there? So we brought that module in. And then we brought all manner other modules, communications and the rest, digital marketing and measurement to actually do all of that. We have about 11 modules in that program. However, how is it different from every other programs? What we did was and you've seen some of your colleagues do, you don't write exams, you do projects. The project approach is an approach that forces you to bring that knowledge into experimentation. So it's just the question I used to, when people ask me why do you go that direction, and the analogy I used to tell them is this. I said, if you want to travel to, say, UK, and you are entering the plane, you just sat down and they announce that this is pilot Tokumbo. He had first class in aeronautical engineering, but today is his first flight. He's just flying for today. He has first class. I'm sure
he will disembark
in 2-3 minutes. A lot of people will have a change of mind. But if they also tell you the same plane you enter and they say this is pilot Tokumbo, he finished from City Guide Aviation School in Ikeja, but he's been flying for the past 45 years without a record of crash, what will you do? So that's why I force people into that space of practicality, because I've done interview with people and I've asked people questions. You realize people are very good at cramming things and come and pour it at interview.
Tell me about it.
But when you give them the blank sheet of paper to actually replicate that, they don't even know how to start. And that is why it is important to force people to actually do this. And when I'm confident that you can do it, not just do it because you can go and rent somebody to do it for you. You come and present it in front of industry experts, who are the people that are going to judge whether you actually pass or not. So that way forces you to know by force. And that's the difference between what we do at BMA.
Fantastic stuff. Again, I feel like one of the things that was very impressive about BMA is that in my about 10 to 12 years in this space, majority of the people in marketing, both agency and the client side, did not study anything that's got to do with marketing in school. I mean, I'm not even denying it. My background is microbiology. At a point, it looked like I was seeing so many microbiology and biochemistry in the space. And I'm like, what's really going on? Like, did we go and understand, all these things in school to have a very analytical mind to come and do this? But like, fantastic work that you do with BMA. What are some of the key consumer behavior trends that you've identified in the Nigerian consumer space within the last 3 to 5 years? And I'm saying 3 to 5 years because I'm trying to look at the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic life of the Nigerian consumer. What are those trends that are worthy of note to a marketing executive, marketing manager, or a chief marketing officer today?
Okay. And again, thanks for that question. So, oftentimes when I speak a lot of people always feel like, why do I say what I say? That I thank God pandemic happened in my lifetime.
Tell me about that.
So, and they say, oh, why are you negative or whatsoever it is? I said, no. Because pandemic came to further support some of the assertions some of us have heard for a longer period of time. And whenever we throw those things into space, it's like you are talking off.
I'm curious now. I'm really curious.
Okay, so, and I'm going to flip from functions. Let me start with HR.
Okay.
I remember in those days, today now, I came in now, you're telling me that, oh, you work 2 days. So some of the people are not around. And before pandemic, I'm not sure, maybe you were doing that.
No, I wasn't.
Exactly. So the same with different functions, different organizations that I've worked, and I let people understand that I am a proponent of what I call professional responsibility. It's a concept that I learned long time ago, when you don't need to coerce and force people to do their jobs. When people are matured enough to understand that I don't have to be in the office for me to deliver the responsibility that is on my table. That is professional responsibility. That is the maturity that is required. And I remember in my team then, I used to actually encourage it. I really don't care whether you come, except if there is something that requires physicality. If it doesn't require, we have an objective. I manage by objective. I don't manage by seeing you in the office. It changes nothing. A lot of people come to those offices, sit down, and all they are doing is watching Netflix. So the same thing happened from a marketing point of view, to say pre-marketing,
Pandemic.
There's this concept of, experiential marketing, jump on the bus, jump in the market, and all of that. Yes, I understand the cultural dynamics of our environment. To say we are social beings, and because we're social beings, that's communal interaction is very, very important. However, most often, we also need to understand the need for customization, personalization, and the need for actually, taking this experience beyond a construct of a social gathering. How do you create those social gatherings in a virtual space and get people to be part of it? And we've seen how pandemic has forced all of us, literally forced us into that space. How do we work virtually? That is one trend that will continue to grow, and it's getting worse because we now have the likes of metaverse coming into play. And the metaverse has opened up a different thing entirely, that literally you don't have to even be in a place to be part of anything.
To experience what's going on there.
So it's a matter of you just, flipping your either augmented reality, and then you find yourself there. Today, we are talking about blockchain. Today, we are talking about AI. We are talking about all of those things are things that came because of pandemic. I've also seen the trend that, pandemic forced people to start asking more questions. So I'm not even saying Nigeria. Consumers generally, globally, are becoming more wiser, intelligent, and
more curious,
demanding. So the era of, bullshit marketing has gone. So you need to understand, how do you begin to, look at consumers and really, really meet consumer at how they want to be met. Today we are seeing a lot of co-creations happening in those spaces where you're not doing what we call storytelling again. You're doing what we call story making. Where you now begin to integrate your consumer into
the brand story.
Your brand story. Yeah. So it's not about I go shoot an ad. What is the content of that ad? That ad encapsulates the real life of what is happening with people. And that is exactly what is changing. That's exactly what is changing.
Sincerely, thank you very much for that. As someone with a lot of experience what's the best foundation for building a long-lasting, successful career in marketing?
Well, like I said, there are three things which I often tell people. One, competence. You can't run away from that. You need to keep developing yourself. Keep developing. I have a master's degree from Lagos Business School. Today I'm doing a doctorate program. I've gone to all manner of schools here and there.
You keep reading.
The idea is the knowledge is transcendent. Yesterday's knowledge is literally, obsolete today. So you need to keep upscaling. That's number one. Number two, character. You can't run away from the fact that even if you are intelligent to some extent, nobody wants an intelligent rogue, intelligent, somebody who can be spoken to, who doesn't have attitude, who doesn't have emotional intelligence. So all of these things are very critical. Competence, character, and the last thing is, when I split it, that you have competent. It's a different thing for you to have that competent. Is another thing for you to have the capacity. You can have the intelligence. The capacity is your ability to transfer your competence into usage. And that comes with a lot of discipline. It comes with a lot of, being the person that understands what I spoke about before. Professional responsibility. Be that go-to the person. Don't be somebody that they want to force. Even if the company doesn't like you, the fact will remain that they can't do without you. But more importantly, when you now put a spin on it and you have a very great character, I don't know what can stop you. It can only be at the peak.
Thank you very much for that. I think you already gave the advice, because I was going to ask you if you were to advise young marketing professional, what would you say?
One thing I would say is don't run quickly to the top, because I think that's the problem I see. Everybody wants to be head of marketing. Everybody wants to be marketing or chief marketing this and that, and at the end of the day, realize that the foundations are very feeble. Take time to learn the trade of marketing. Just learn it. Find a leader that you can learn from. That is the only thing that will take you to the top, and you stay at that top. And you don't get into a boardroom and you are being, rubbish in the boardroom. Today we have a lot of leaders who are directors who have a seat in the boardroom, but they don't have a voice because they don't understand. A finance person will tell you, so why do you need this sampling? And you can't even defend why you need a sampling because you don't understand that sampling is a function that delivers trial and also deliver awareness. You don't sample what you don't know. And you cannot interpret the different, because when you see the conversion funnel, you understand the conversion index between when you sample somebody and when that person will be converted into a buyer. So if you're not deep and you want to quickly climb to the top, you will get there and be messed up. And what I tell people is you can use 25 years to climb up. One day you can get down. If you don't build that base very well. So my final advice would be learn. Find a mentor, find a coach. Don't be very big, because I see a lot of big women, big guys who feel very, very big to learn. And most of the things, you just want to go and cover up and go to Harvard and go to INSEAD. You don't get the basics in those places. You get the basics in a school where you can learn the rawness of marketing. And then you can then go and build your facade over it. And then that's for me, that's the way it always works.
Wow, it's been incredible having this conversation with you today. Thank you very much for coming.
You.
And I think sometime soon we'll still do this from a different perspective because you're a man of many sides. But once again, thanks for coming.
I'm sure, like you said, in the future, probably we'll have something more to discuss. Thank you very much.
That'll be all for today. See you on the next one. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of Chats with Executive, be sure to subscribe and tune in next time for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. Until then, take care.